Chapter 1. Bus to Las Vegas. The first time I saw Terry Lennox, he was sitting in a Rolls-Royce in front of a fancy restaurant, and he was very drunk. He had a young man's face, but his hair was white as snow. You could see he was drunk by looking at his eyes. Otherwise, he looked like any young man who'd been spending too much money in a place that was there to take your money. There was a woman beside him. Her hair was a pretty dark red, and she had a distant smile on her lips.
"I have a wonderful idea, darling,"
the woman said, trying to be nice.
"Why don't we take a taxi to your place and get your little car out? It's a wonderful night for a ride up the coast."
The man said,
"Awfully sorry, but I don't have it anymore. Had to sell it."
He spoke clearly.
"Sold it, darling? What do you mean?"
She slid away from him, but her voice slid even further.
"I had to. Had to eat." "Oh, I see."
A piece of ice wouldn't have melted on her now. Right then, the car door seemed to open itself, and the young man fell off the seat and landed sitting on the ground. So I went over and stuck my nose in their business, although it's always a mistake to interfere with people who are drunk. I picked him up and put him on his feet.
"Thank you so much,"
he said politely. I thought I heard an accent.
"He is so English when he's drunk,"
she said in a hard voice.
"Thanks for catching him."
"I'll get him in the back of the car," I said.
"Sorry, mister, but I'm late for an appointment."
She started to drive off.
"He's just a lost dog,"
she added.
"Perhaps you can find a good home for him."
And then she was gone, and the guy was asleep in my arms. I carried him to my car. He was heavy. As I put him in the front seat, he woke up and thanked me again, and went back to sleep. He was the politest drunk I'd ever met. While I drove, I looked at him once in a while. The right side of his face was one big scar that the doctors had worked on. They hadn't failed, but they hadn't succeeded either. I was living that year in a house on Yucca Avenue in the Laurel Canyon area. The rent was low, partly because the owner didn't want a written agreement, and partly because of the steps. She was getting old, and they were too steep for her. I got him up them somehow. Inside, I put him on the sofa and let him go back to sleep. He slept for an hour. When he woke up, he looked around and at me and wanted to know where he was. I told him. He said his name was Terry Lennox and that he lived in Westwood, alone. His voice was steady. He said he could handle a cup of coffee. When I brought it, he asked me why he was here. I told him he had passed out outside a restaurant and his girl had driven off and left him. He said he couldn't blame her. "You English?" I asked.
"I lived there once. I wasn't born there."
He finished the coffee and I drove him home. He didn't say much on the way, except that he was sorry. He had probably said it so often that it was automatic. His apartment was small and empty. There was a little furniture, but no personal items at all. It didn't look like a place where anybody lived. He offered me a drink. I said no. When I left, he thanked me again, but not as if I'd climbed a mountain for him, and not as if it was nothing at all. He was shy, but very polite. Whatever he didn't have, he had manners. Driving home, I thought about him. I'm supposed to be tough, but this one bothered me. I didn't know why, unless it was the white hair and the scar and the clear voice. There was no reason I should see him again, though. He was just a lost dog, like the woman said. It was a month later when I did see him again, about 3 blocks from my office. There was a police car stopped in the middle of the street, and the men inside were staring at something on the curb. That something was Terry Lennox, or what was left of him. His shirt was dirty and open at the neck. He hadn't shaved for 4 or 5 days. His skin was so pale that the scar hardly showed. It was obvious why the policemen were looking at him, so I went over there fast and took hold of his arm. "Stand up and walk," I said. "Can you do it?" He looked at me and nodded slowly. I wasn't even sure he recognized me.
"I'm just a little empty," he said.
He made the effort and let me walk him to the street. There was a taxi there. I opened the back door and got him inside. The police car pulled up. A cop with gray hair asked me, "What do we got here?" "He's not drunk," I said. "He's a friend." "That's nice," the cop said sarcastically. He was still looking at Terry. "What's your friend's name, pal?"
"Philip Marlowe," Terry said slowly. "He lives on Yucca Avenue in Laurel Canyon."
The cop stared at us both. He was making a decision. It took him a little while. "Okay, get him off the street at least." The police car drove away. We went to a place where you could get hamburgers that you could actually eat. I fed Lennox a couple and a bottle of beer and took him to my place. An hour later he was shaved and clean, and he looked human again. I made 2 very mild drinks, and we talked as we drank. "Lucky you remembered my name," I said.
"Not only that," he said. "I looked up your phone number, too."
"So why didn't you call? I live here all the time."
"Why should I bother you?"
"Looks like you ought to have bothered someone."
"Asking for help isn't easy," he said, "especially when it's all your own fault."
He looked up with a tired smile.
"Maybe I can stop drinking one of these days. They all say that, don't they?"
"It takes about 3 years.
3 years?
He looked shocked. He turned and looked at the clock and changed the subject.
"I have a suitcase worth $200 down at the Hollywood bus station. I could get money for it. Maybe not $200, but enough for a bus ticket to Las Vegas, and I could get a job there."
I didn't say anything.
"A man I knew well in the Army runs a big club there. His name's Randy Starr."
Something must have shown on my face.
"Yes,"
he continued.
"He's part gangster, but they all are, and the other part of him isn't bad."
"I can give you the bus fare and some extra," I said. He shook his head. "I want you out of my hair," I explained. "I've got a feeling about you."
"You have?"
He looked down into his glass.
"We've only met twice. What sort of feeling?"
"A feeling that next time we meet, I'll find you in worse trouble than I can get you out of. I don't know why I have this feeling, but I do." He touched his scar gently.
"Maybe it's this. Makes me look like trouble, I suppose. But I got it honestly."
"It's not that," I said. "It's this. I'm a private detective, and you're a problem that I don't have to solve. But the problem's there. Maybe that girl didn't drive away that time just because you were drunk. Maybe she had a feeling, too." He smiled faintly.
"I was married to her once. Her name is still Lennox. I married her for her money."
When he saw my face, his smile disappeared.
"You're wondering why I didn't ask her for help. Did you ever hear of pride?"
"You're killing me, Lennox."
"My pride is different. It's the pride of a man who has nothing else. Sorry if it bothers you."
It bothered me, and he bothered me too, although I couldn't understand exactly why. any more than I knew why a man would starve and walk the streets before he'd sell a suitcase. Whatever his rules were, though, he played by them. I went down to the bus station and got his suitcase for him. When I came back, he said he had called his pal in Las Vegas.
He was sore at me because I hadn't called him before.
It takes a stranger to help you, I said, and put $100 in front of him. And take the suitcase with you. You might need to sell it later.
I don't want it, he said. If you like, you can keep it for me.
He changed his clothes, and we went out for dinner. No drinks. Afterwards, he caught the bus, and I drove home, thinking about this and that. At 9:30, the telephone rang, and the voice that spoke was one I had heard once before.
Is this Mr. Philip Marlowe?
It is.
This is Sylvia Lennox, Mr. Marlowe. We met for a moment one night last month. I heard afterwards that you'd been kind enough to take Terry home.
I did that.
I've been a little worried about him. Nobody seems to know where he is.
I noticed how worried you were the other night, I said. He's on a bus to Las Vegas.
Las Vegas?
This news seemed to cheer her up.
How sweet of him. That's where we were married.
I guess he forgot that, I said, or he would have gone somewhere else. Instead of hanging up, she laughed. It was a pretty laugh.
Are you always as rude as this to ladies?
I don't know that you are a lady. The man was living in the streets. He had no money, none at all. You could have found him if you'd really wanted to. He didn't want anything from you then, and he probably doesn't want anything from you now.
That,
she said coolly,
is something you know nothing about, Mr. Marlowe. Good night.
She was completely right, of course, and I was all wrong. But I didn't feel wrong then. I just felt angry. Chapter 2. An Englishman's Drink. 3 days before Christmas, I got a check on a Las Vegas bank for $100. A note came with it. He thanked me, wished me a Merry Christmas, and said he hoped to see me soon. The surprise came at the end.
Sylvia and I were married again. She says not to be angry with her for wanting to try again.
I read the rest of the story on the society page of the newspaper. All are happy with the news that Sylvia and Terry Lennox have remarried at Las Vegas, the darlings. Sylvia is, of course, the youngest daughter of millionaire Harlan Potter. And what does Daddy think of the marriage? One can only guess. Potter is one person who never, ever gives interviews. Well, I thought, if he wants her money, let him take it. I just didn't want to see him again. But I knew I would, if only because of the suitcase. It was 5 o'clock on a wet March evening when he walked into my little office. He looked changed, older, more serious, but calmer, too, like a man who had learned a hard lesson. "Let's go to some quiet bar," he said, as if he'd seen me 10 minutes before. We didn't shake hands. We almost never did. Englishmen don't shake hands all the time like Americans do, and although he wasn't English, he had their manners. We went to Victor's. On the way, I said something stupid about his new life, and he said that if he wasn't happy, at least he was rich. And he said that he wasn't having any trouble at all handling his drinking these days. "Perhaps you were never really drunk," I said. At the bar, we drank gin and lime, an Englishman's drink. Lennox said they didn't know the right way to make them here. I wasn't interested in talking about drinks. So I asked him about his pal in Las Vegas. Down my street, I said, Starr was known as a tough customer.
Randy? In Las Vegas, he's a straight businessman. You should drop in and see him next time you're there. He'll be your pal.
Not too likely. I don't like gangsters.
That's just a word, Marlowe. We have that kind of world. The wars gave it to us, and we're going to keep it. Randy and I and another guy were all in a little danger once together. It's different for the three of us.
So why didn't you ask him for help when you needed it? He finished his drink and signaled for another.
Because he couldn't refuse. I didn't want to beg from him.
You begged from a stranger. He looked me straight in the eye.
Strangers can keep going and pretend not to hear.
When he finished the second drink, he drove me back to the office. From then on, it became his habit to drop in around 5 o'clock. We usually went to Victor's. I didn't understand why he enjoyed being with me instead of being in his big, expensive house. I asked him about that once.
Nothing for me at the house,
he said, drinking his usual gin and lime. Am I supposed to understand that?
A big film with no story, as they say in the film business. Sylvia is happy enough, but not with me. In our circle, that's not too important. You see, the rich don't really have a good time. They never want anything very much, except maybe someone else's wife. And that's a pale desire compared with the way a butcher's wife wants new curtains for the living room. Mostly I just kill time. A little tennis, a little swimming.
I told him it didn't have to be the way it was. He said I should wonder why she wanted him, not why he wanted to be there. You like having servants and bells to ring, I said. He just smiled.
Could be. I grew up as an orphan with no money.
I began thinking I liked him better drunk, hungry, and beaten and proud. That night, he would have told me the story of his life if I'd asked him. If I had asked, and if he had told me, it might have saved a couple of lives. It might have. The last time we had drinks together was in May. It was earlier than usual, and the bar was nearly empty.
I like bars at this hour, he said. I like to watch the man fix the first one of the evening. I like to taste it slowly. Alcohol is like love. The first kiss is magic.
Then he started talking about her.
I feel sorry for Sylvia. She's so terrible, but I think I like her. One day she'll need someone, and no one else will be there. And I'll probably make a mess of it.
What's this about? I asked.
She's scared. I don't know of what. Maybe her father. He's a cold man. He doesn't even like her. If she annoys him too much, something might happen to her.
You're her husband, I pointed out.
Officially, nothing more.
I couldn't listen to this. I stood up and dropped some money on the table. You talk too much, and it's always about you. See you later. I walked out. 10 minutes later, I was sorry. But 10 minutes later, I was somewhere else. I didn't see him again for a month. When I did, it was early in the morning. The doorbell woke me up. He was standing there looking like hell, and he had a gun in his hand. The gun wasn't pointed at me. He was just holding it.
You're driving me to Tijuana to get a plane at 10:15. I have a passport, but I don't have transportation. I'll pay you $500 for the ride.
I stood in the door and didn't move to let him in. "How about $500 plus the gun?" I asked. He looked at it and then dropped it in his pocket. "Come on in," I said, and he came in and fell into a chair.
"I'm in trouble,"
he said. "It's going to be a beautiful day. Cool, too." "Yeah, I guessed you were in trouble. Let's talk about it after coffee. I always need my morning coffee." He followed me into the kitchen. I poured him a big drink from a bottle off the shelf. He had to use 2 hands to get it to his mouth.
"Didn't sleep at all last night,"
he said weakly. I poured him another drink, and he drank this one with 1 hand. When he finished it, the coffee was ready. I sat down across from him. Without warning, his head came down on the table, and he was crying. He didn't seem to notice when I took the gun from his pocket. I smelled it. It hadn't been fired. He lifted his head and said,
"I didn't shoot anybody."
I held up my hand. "Wait a minute. It's like this. Be very careful what you tell me if you want me to help you. I can't be told about a crime you've committed, or a crime you know has been committed. Not if you want me to drive you to Tijuana." He looked straight at me for the first time since he'd come in.
"I said I was in trouble."
"I heard you. I don't want to know what kind of trouble. It's a matter of law. I can't know."
"I could make you drive me, with the gun,"
he said. I grinned and pushed the gun across the table. He didn't touch it. I'm a man who sometimes has business with guns. I'd look stupid trying to tell the police I was so scared I had to do what you told me to.
"Listen," he said. "They won't even look in the bedroom until midday. She won't be there. The bed will be too neat, so they'll look in the guest house. Servants always know what goes on."
"And when they see her," I said, "they'll think she's drunk, right? And that's the end of the story. That's all I want to hear. You're sick of it all. You've been thinking of leaving for some time."
"I called her father last night,"
Lennox said, remembering.
"I told him I was leaving."
"What did he say?"
"He was sorry. He wished me luck. Oh, yes, he also asked me if I needed money. That's all he ever thinks about."
"Did you ever see her with a man in the guest house?" I asked suddenly. He looked surprised.
"I never even tried."
"Okay, so this is how it is. You came to me this morning and wanted a ride to Tijuana. You couldn't bear life with her anymore. Where you went was none of my business. We're friends, and I did what you asked me."
"How does it sound?"
He looked at me hopefully. "It depends on who's listening."
"I'm sorry,"
he said. "Your type's always sorry, and always too late. I've still got that suitcase of yours. You need luggage. It'll look better." I got it from where I'd kept it and put some things in it. Nothing used, nothing marked. Then I got the car out, locked up, and we left. We didn't have much to say to each other on the way down. The border people had nothing to say to us either. When we reached the airport, the plane was there, but no one was hurrying. Terry went to get his ticket and came back. There were only a few people waiting with us.
"Okay, I'm ready," he said. "This is where I say goodbye."
We shook hands. He looked tired, very tired.
"I owe you," he said, "but you don't owe me. We had a few drinks together, and I talked too much about me. I left a $500 bill in your coffee jar."
"I wish you hadn't."
"I'll never spend half of what I have."
"Good luck, Terry. Go. Get on the plane. I know you didn't kill her." He stared at me. He turned away, then looked back.
"I'm sorry," he said quietly. "You're wrong about that. I'm going to walk slowly to the plane. You have plenty of time to stop me." He walked. I watched him. He went through a door.
He was outside now. He stopped there and looked towards me. He didn't wave. Neither did I. Then he went up the steps into the aircraft. The engine started, and that big silver bird began to roll away. The dust rose in clouds behind it. I watched it lift slowly into the air and disappear into the blue sky, going south. Then I left. Chapter 3. Simple Justice. It was 2 in the afternoon when I got home, and they were waiting for me. "You, Marlowe, we want to talk to you." This one was gray-blonde and looked hard. His partner was tall, handsome, and just looked nasty. They both had watching and waiting eyes. They showed me their badges. "Sergeant Green, Central Homicide. This is Detective Dayton." I went on up and unlocked the door. You don't shake hands with the police. They sat in the living room, and Green did the talking. "Man named Terry Lennox. You know him, right?" "We have a drink together once in a while. He lives in Encino. Married money. I've never been there." "When did you last see him?" I filled my pipe. "This is where I ask you what it's all about, and you tell me that you ask the questions, right?" "That's right. So you just answer them." "I don't know. I guess I was tired. Maybe I felt a little guilty." "I don't have to say anything." Dayton spoke up. "Answer the questions, Marlowe. Just cooperate. It's healthier." Right away, I didn't like him. His voice was a hard, don't-fool-with-me voice. I went to the bookshelf and took down the big state law book. I held it out to him. "Find me the part that says I have to answer your questions. There's no such law." "Sit down," Green said impatiently. "Lennox's wife has been murdered. Ugly job. Murderer used something blunt. Must have hit her more than a dozen times. Husband is missing. We find your telephone number in his desk, marked with today's date. She'd been seeing other men. We found that out, too." "Terry Lennox wouldn't do anything like that. He's known about the other men for a long time." "He's not going to tell us anything, Sergeant," Dayton said. "He's read that law book. He thinks the law lives in the book. Don't you, Marlowe?" I said nothing. I wasn't going to help him. "Stand up," he said. I started to get up. I was halfway up when he hit me. I sat back down and shook my head. Dayton was smiling. Green was looking away. "Let's try again," Dayton suggested. I didn't move or speak. If I stood up, he'd hit me again. But if he hit me again, I'd hurt him. He couldn't hit me hard enough to stop me from hurting him next time. "That was stupid," Green said to Dayton. "That's just what he wanted. A good reason for not talking." I nodded. "Terry Lennox is my friend. Maybe you have enough evidence. In court, I'll answer questions. But not here. Not now. You're not a bad guy, Green. Your partner has psychological problems, that's all. And if he hits me again, he'll have medical problems, too." They had no choice. They put the bracelets on me and took me in. At the station, I still didn't feel like talking. But now the person I wasn't talking to was a captain. "Thinks he's tough," the captain said. "We could change that." He didn't sound as if he really cared. "Guess we'd better. You can talk now." I didn't say anything. He reached for the coffee cup on his desk. I was in a chair facing him. The bracelets were on tight. That's the way he wanted them. But when he threw the coffee at me, I was faster than he was. Most of it missed. "Doesn't like coffee. Look, pal, you've got some information that I want. Saying nothing at all is no good. If I tell you what you want, I asked, will you take the bracelets off? Maybe. Maybe not. Tell me first. If I say I haven't seen Lennox today, would that satisfy you? It might. But he was losing patience. If I believed you, I'd like to talk to a lawyer. How about that? The captain laughed. It was a short, ugly laugh. He leaned across the desk and hit me with a hand of stone. There was thunder inside my head. When he spoke to me again, the words seemed to come from far away. I used to be tough, but I'm getting old. You take a good blow, Marlowe, and that's all you'll get from me. We have younger, stronger guys for this work. Okay, you won't talk to me, but you'll talk to them. I promise you that. The telephone rang. Green handed it to the captain. Yes, sir, the captain said. He's here. Really? Is that an order? His face was red and getting redder. Fine, sir. He put the telephone down with a bang. He was shaking with anger when he turned to speak to me. The DA wants you for himself. You're his headache now. He told Green to get me out of there. Before we reached the door, however, he held up one of those stone hands, and we stopped. You've got something to say, right? Your type always does. Say it. Yes, sir, I answered him politely. You probably didn't intend to, but you've done me a favor. You've solved a problem for me. No man likes to betray a friend, but I wouldn't even betray an enemy to you. I might have told you something before you hit me. Now I wouldn't tell you what day of the week it is. Green marched me out. I spent the next 3 days in jail. It wasn't so bad. It was quiet, and it was clean. No one bothered me. On the 3rd day, a guard unlocked my door in the middle of the morning. Your lawyer's here, and don't throw that cigarette on the floor. He took me to the conference room. A tall man with dark hair was standing there looking out of the window. He turned and waited for the door to close. He took out a fancy cigarette case and looked me over. Sit down, Marlowe. Cigarette? My name is Endicott. Sewell Endicott. I've been told to help you. It won't cost you anything. I guess you'd like to get out of here. I sat down and took one of his cigarettes. He lit it for me. I asked him who had sent him. He wouldn't tell me. I guess that means they caught him. He shook his head. If you mean Lennox, and of course you do, no, they haven't caught him. Well, if they haven't got Terry, why are they holding me? He frowned. I think I can help you get out of here. So, let's work on your problems and not Terry's. Don't you want my help? No, I told him. I didn't. When a clever lawyer gets you out of jail before the police are ready to let you go, people talk. They say unkind things. Listen, I said, I'm not in here for Lennox. I'm in here for me. I'm in a business where people come to me with troubles. Troubles they don't want to share with the police. That's why I'm not talking. You can tell Terry that. I see your point, Endicott said, but I have to tell you, I'm not in contact with Lennox. If I knew where he was, I'd have to tell the police. I'm a lawyer, and that's the law. You believe in the law? The question annoyed him.
The law, he said, is not justice. It's just a half-broken machine. If you push the right buttons and you're lucky at the same time, you might get some justice. Now, do you want my help or not? I still didn't. I'll wait a few more days. If they catch Terry, they won't care how he got away. And if they don't get him, they'll want to forget it all fast. By the way, why haven't any reporters been in to see me? I thought the old man, Harlan Potter, owned 9 or 10 newspapers. With all that money and power, he should be able to make this into a real party. Endicott looked at me coldly. You're strange, Marla. You know so little. All that money and power can also buy a lot of silence. He opened the door and went out. The guard took me back and locked me in again. I had said I would wait a few days, but it turned out I didn't have to. A few hours later, another guard came and took me to see someone in the DA's office. We went through the door without knocking. A fat man with a square chin and stupid eyes was pushing something into the drawer of his desk. The guard left, and I pulled a chair over and sat down. "I didn't say you could sit down," the man said sharply. I took out a cigarette. "And I didn't say you could smoke," he shouted at me. I lit my cigarette. "Take another drink from that bottle on the desk," I said. "It'll make you feel better." He waited a minute. Then he said, "A tough guy, huh? Some hard guys come in here, but that's not the way they leave. They leave here small. I want a full statement from you." "I get so tired of it," I said, looking into those stupid eyes. "Tired of what?" "Hard little men in hard little offices talking hard little words that don't mean a thing. You think a few days in here is going to make me cry on your shoulder? Forget it. And forget the threats. If you're big enough, you don't need them. And if you need them, you're not big enough to scare me." The fat man played with some papers on his desk. Then he looked up, smiling. "It doesn't really matter if you don't talk. We've found your friend." I didn't believe him, and I let him know it. Believe me, too, that we have people that saw you with them at Tijuana Airport. You want the whole story? Lennox got off the plane in Mazatlan. He disappeared for about an hour. Then a tall man with black hair and dark skin and a scar, maybe a knife scar, booked to Torreon under the name of Silvano Rodriguez. He was too tall to be so dark. The pilot turned in a report on him. The police were too slow in Torreon, but they followed him to a little mountain town called Atataclan. He rented a hotel room there. He was wearing a gun, too, but that's not unusual in Mexico. But the police were right behind him, see? They found him in the hotel. I laughed. That's a terrible story. Lennox is too smart to try to be a Mexican in Mexico. You don't know where he is. That's why you want my statement. He took the bottle out then and had a drink. Then he picked up one of the papers from his desk, grabbed a pen, and signed it. "I've just set you free. Want to know why?" I stood up. "If you want to tell me." "The investigation's finished. Lennox finished it. He wrote a full confession this afternoon in his hotel room in Atataclan. Then he shot himself." I stood there looking at nothing. The fat man watched me nervously. I think he thought I might hit him. I didn't. I just walked out and closed the door. I closed it quietly, as if on a room where someone had just died. I met a friend downstairs on my way out. He wanted to know why I was there, so I told him. Morgan is a reporter, and he gave me a ride home because he's my friend and because he's a reporter. "Very neat, don't you think?"
he asked after he'd listened to my story. You think this isn't straight?
Two things. Harlan Potter is a very rich man who hates having his name in any newspaper, even his own newspapers. So the trial would have annoyed him. Now Lennox is dead and there's not going to be a trial. Convenient for Potter.
He continued after a minute.
Then there's a chance that the poor fool had a little help shooting himself.
I didn't think he'd needed help. He hadn't thought much of himself lately. But maybe Morgan wasn't all wrong. Before he dropped me off, he had one more thing to suggest.
If I were a clever reporter instead of a stupid one, I'd think maybe he didn't kill her at all.
It was something to think about, but I was too tired to think. I went in and made some coffee, drank it, and took Terry's $500 bill out of the coffee jar. I brought in the newspapers that were on the front steps and read about Lennox. There was even a short story about me. One thing bothered me, though. The way she'd been killed. I was still sure Terry couldn't have done that. But no one was going to explain it to me, because no explanation was necessary now. The murderer had confessed, and he was dead. It was good work either way. If he had killed her, it was simple justice. If he hadn't, that was fine, too. He couldn't deny it now. Chapter 4. Letter from a Dead Man. The next morning, I was back at the office, business as usual. When I thought about Terry, I tried not to let it hurt, but I still felt I owned a little piece of him, so it did. The bell and the telephone rang at the same time. I answered the telephone first.
Mr. Marlowe, this is Sewell Endicott.
Good morning, Mr. Endicott.
Glad to hear you're free. I guess it's over, but if they bother you again about this, call me.
The man's dead, I said. They won't bother me again. They have their confession.
Yes, I know, he said. I'm flying to Mexico today to look at the body for them. But let me give you some advice before I go. Don't be too certain they won't make trouble for you. Private detectives aren't their favorite people. And stubborn private detectives, well...
He hung up without finishing the sentence. I opened my office door. The man had let himself into the waiting room. He was sitting by the window, reading a magazine. He looked quite comfortable. He had thick, dark hair and was very brown from the sun. His clothes probably cost more than I earned in a couple of months. He threw the magazine onto the low table. The stuff they write these days. What can I do for you? He looked at me for a moment and then laughed. A hero on a bicycle. What? You, Marlowe, a hero on a bicycle. Did they hurt you much? Why do you care? He didn't answer. Instead, he stood up and walked into my office. I followed him. You're a little man. Look at this place. You don't make much money, do you? A cheap little man. I let him talk and sat down behind my desk. That's it. You're a cheap guy, cheap feelings. Have a few drinks with somebody and suddenly you're his pal. You have nothing. A hero on a bicycle. He leaned over the desk and slapped me. It didn't hurt, and I didn't move. You know who I am, cheapie? Your name is Menendez. They call you Mendy. Yeah, that's right. He took a gold cigarette case out of his pocket and lit a brown cigarette with a gold lighter. I'm a big, bad man, Marlowe. I make a lot of money. I have to make a lot of money, so I can pay the men I have to pay so I can make a lot of money. I have a house in Bel Air that cost $90,000, and that was before I fixed it up. I've got a beautiful wife, and my children go to private schools. My wife likes diamonds. I've got 6 servants, 5 cars. What do you have, Marlowe? Why don't you tell me what you want? He put out his cigarette and lit another. Let me tell you a story. In the war, there were 3 guys in a hole. It was cold, very cold. It was snowing. Randy Starr, Terry Lennox, and me. Something lands right in the hole, but it doesn't explode. The Germans had a lot of tricks. Sometimes you think it won't explode, and then 3 seconds later you're wrong. Anyway, Terry grabbed this one and jumped out of the hole. He was quick, very quick. He threw it, and it exploded in the air. A piece got him on the side of the face. Right then, the Germans attacked, and we had to run. We left him. We thought he was dead. The Germans found him and had him for a year and a half. They did a good job on his face, but they hurt him too much. That's why his hair was white. Randy and I spent money to find him. He'd saved our lives. All he got from his share was half of a new face. And then, when he's really in trouble, he doesn't come to us. He comes to you, Jeepy. That makes us mad, see? I could have helped him. Instead, he's dead, and you think you're a hero. I shook my head. No, I don't. Of course you do. The story is over, Marlowe. Even if... He stopped in the middle of the sentence. Even if Terry didn't kill her, I said. If that's the way Terry wanted it, then that's how it stays. See you around, cheapie. I felt old and tired. I got up slowly and picked up his cigarette case from my desk. You forgot this, I said, going towards him. So what? I've got a dozen, he said. He didn't even reach for it. How about a dozen of these, I asked, moving in fast and close and hitting him as hard as I could in the stomach. He fell back against the wall, making the sounds a cat makes when it's sick. Then, very slowly, he straightened up. I patted his cheek gently. He didn't push my hand away. I didn't think you had the courage, he said weakly. Next time, bring a gun. I got a guy to carry the gun, he said. Maybe you'll meet him one of these days. He walked out slowly. After that, nothing happened for 3 days. Sylvia Lennox was buried. The press was not invited to the funeral, and her father, as usual, gave no public statement. In the afternoon of the 3rd day, the telephone rang, and I found myself talking to a man named Howard Spencer, a New York publisher who said he had a California problem. We agreed to meet in the bar of his hotel the next morning. I needed the job because I needed the money, or thought I did, until I got home and found a letter. The envelope was covered with Mexican stamps. I recognized the handwriting in the address. I was holding a letter from a dead man. I opened it and read. It didn't start with my name. It just started.
I'm sitting in a hotel room in a town called Otataclan. There's a mailbox just below the window, and when the boy comes with the coffee I ordered, he's going to mail this letter for me. I'm going to watch him put it in the box, and then I'll pay him. I can't mail it myself because I can't leave my room. They're outside, waiting for me. I want you to have this money because I don't need it, and the police would steal it if I kept it. Maybe you think I didn't kill her. It doesn't matter, though. Her father and her sister were always good to me. A trial would hurt them. I don't want that. I don't care what happens to me. I'm disgusted with my life. I've written a confession. You read about this in books, but you don't read the truth. The truth is, I feel sick and very scared. But I'm going to do it anyway. So forget it, and me. But first, drink a gin and lime for me at Victor's. After that, forget the whole thing. Goodbye.
That was all. That and a $5,000 bill. I looked at it carefully. I had never seen one before. Lots of people who work in banks haven't either. Menendez probably had a dozen. I met Mr. Howard Spencer at 11 the next morning. I was early and he was late. While I was waiting, I looked at the people who come to a hotel bar at 11 in the morning. There were two young men with a telephone at their table. They took turns making calls and shouting at each other and at the people they called. There was a man sitting at the bar who was telling the story of his life to no one in particular. A long, sad story. I had almost become tired of waiting when a dream in a white skirt walked in. There are blondes and blondes. Different kinds. I know. I've studied the subject. There are blondes who read big, long books and write poetry. There are blondes who like parties and laugh loudly at all the jokes, even the old ones. There are blondes, too, who marry millionaires and live on the south coast of France and kiss their husbands goodnight downstairs. But this one was not any of these kinds. She was unique. She was quite tall and had eyes like a summer sky. She smiled gently at the old waiter who pulled out a chair for her. I just held my breath and watched. I was still watching when a man's voice said, close to my shoulder, "I must apologize for being so late, Mr. Marlowe. I'm Howard Spencer." I had trouble tearing my eyes away from the dream to look at him. He was about 45 years old, wearing a suit that was fine for Boston, but all wrong for California. He was carrying an old leather case. "Two new books in here," he said, patting the leather. "I'm sure they're awful, but I don't suppose you care about publishers' problems." "I could," I said, "if it has anything to do with the job." I admired the way Spencer was looking right at me, not giving any attention to the blonde. He ordered drinks and explained the job. One of his authors lived out here, a man named Roger Wade. I knew the name, but hadn't read the books. Apparently everyone else did, though, because Wade was one of Spencer's biggest writers. Except that Wade had been having a bad period lately. He drank too much, Spencer said, and went a little crazy sometimes. He had hurt his wife. More important to Spencer, however, he had also stopped writing. All that Spencer wanted was for me to save the wife from the writer from himself, and a half-finished book from the bottle in Wade's desk. That's all. It was interesting. It was also impossible. I told him that what he needed was a male nurse, not a detective. I couldn't stop a man from drinking, and if the wife was living with him, I couldn't protect her either. Not day and night. "Your answer is no, then?" "I'm sorry, Mr. Spencer. I don't think I'd be any help." Suddenly, a voice that was not Spencer's said, "You're wrong, Mr. Marlowe. I'm sure you could help." It was a voice like honey. I looked up into a pair of violet eyes. "He doesn't want to help, Eileen," Spencer said. She smiled. "I disagree." I stopped staring long enough to answer. "I didn't say I wasn't interested, Mrs. Wade. I just don't think it would work. I'm sorry." I thought she would argue, but she didn't. She gave me her card in case I changed my mind, thanked me, and left. just like that. I sat down, grabbed my whiskey, and watched her walk out of the hotel. What a walk. When she had gone, Spencer turned to me, something new in his eyes. "Nice," I said, "but you should have looked at her once or twice while we talked. She's much too pretty to ignore." Spencer went red in the face. "She's married, Mr. Marlowe." I smiled. "That doesn't make her ugly, Mr. Spencer." We did not shake hands when he left. That night, I received a telephone call from Green. "Thought you might want to know. They buried Lennox down in Mexico today. Some lawyer took care of it." Endicott, I thought. "Thanks for telling me, Sergeant. Anything else?" "Just this. Lennox is buried, and so is the rest of it. Leave it alone." Sweet dreams to you, too, I thought. Chapter 5. Dr. Veringer's Farm. Next morning, the bell rang just as I finished shaving. I opened the door and looked into a pair of violet eyes again. She was wearing a brown suit this time. "Come in, Mrs. Wade. Like a cup of coffee?" She came into the living room and sat down.
"Thank you. Black coffee, please."
I brought the coffee in my good cups. They were the only two in the kitchen that matched. "The last time I had coffee with someone was just before I went to jail," I said. "I guess you knew I'd been to jail, Mrs. Wade." She nodded.
"They thought you helped him escape, didn't they? He must have been insane."
I filled a pipe and lit it. "Yes, he must have been. He was badly hurt in the war. But I don't think you came here to talk about that." It took a little more conversation and another cup of coffee to find out what the problem was. Roger Wade was missing. Spencer hadn't told me because Spencer didn't know. This was Mrs. Wade's little secret. Apparently, Wade did this often, but this time his wife was worried. Something was wrong, she said. "Mr. Spencer said the same thing, Mrs. Wade. He thought it might be some hidden guilt that makes your husband drink so much. What do you think?" She said she didn't know. She added that if Wade had a secret, even a bad secret, something criminal, for instance, she wouldn't care. She just wanted him back. "Let's say I say yes this time," I asked her. "Where would I start? Do you have any idea where he is?"
"Yes and no," she replied after thinking. "He's at some doctor's place, I'm sure. He goes to them when he's been drinking heavily, and they help him stop. For a few days at least. But I don't know these doctors."
She did, however, have a note she found in her husband's desk. He had written, "I do not like you, Dr. V, but right now you're the man for me." We had finished all the coffee.
"Please,"
she begged.
"Find Roger and bring him home."
How could I refuse a lady like that twice? I couldn't. I said I would try, and she thanked me and left. No matter how clever you think you are, you have to have a place to start from. A name, an address, something. All I had was the letter V. So I did what I do when I need help. I called a friend and asked. George Peters worked for a big detective agency, but he hadn't forgotten the old hard times. Sure, he said, he could give me 10 minutes if I came to his office. He hadn't changed much with the years. He was still thin, he was still all smiles, and he was still a busy man. "What can I do for you?" he asked from behind a desk like a football field. I'd like to see your file on the doctors in the hotel business. You know, the ones where you go when no one knows where you are. I've got a missing man who's probably trying to stop drinking. He's rich and his wife is worried." Peters found the file, and we looked at it together. There were 3 names and addresses under the letter V. I copied them down. "Thanks, pal. I'll do the same for you one day."
"Forget it," Peters said. "By the way, I heard something about your friend Lennox that might interest you. One of our men knew a guy in New York 5 or 6 years ago. He's certain it was Lennox, except his name wasn't Lennox then. It was Marston. Of course, he could be wrong."
I said I doubted it was the same man.
"Our man thinks it was. He's in Seattle now, but I can have him call you when he returns if you want."
"Sure, why not?" And I left to check on the doctors. If you're an honest doctor in California, you might get rich or you might get poor. If you're a dishonest doctor, you're going to make money. I had 3 names: Varley, a bone doctor; Vuckinich, ear, nose, and throat; and Veringer, who called himself doctor but didn't say of what. I started with Vuckinich, an unpleasant character who pretended not to understand that I wanted more than an examination. He did not seem to be my man anyway. He had nothing more than a small office. Not fancy enough. Varley was in another class. He ran a private hospital and was very friendly. He smiled when he said he couldn't help me, and he smiled as he asked me why I was looking for Wade here. I explained that the hospital was on a list of places where certain things had happened in the past, things involving the police. Dr. Varley became suddenly less friendly. We ended our conversation there, but I'd already seen enough of Varley's hospital. He took care of the old and the weak. He wasn't tough enough to handle real trouble. I crossed him off, too, and went to find Dr. Veringer. His place was out in the hills. I liked that, and not just because the air was cleaner there. I liked a place where people wouldn't bother to look for a man. I got there just as it was getting dark. Veringer had a farm with a circle of small buildings surrounding the main house. This time, I decided not to be polite. I drove past the front gate, parked off the road, and came back on foot. I climbed the fence behind the farm and went slowly towards the lights of the buildings. It was dark, and I had a pocket torch, but I didn't want to use it. I was carrying a gun, too, and I didn't want to have to use that either. I stopped at the edge of an empty swimming pool. I heard a door open, so I hid. A light went on outside the main house, a single bright light that made a circle in the dirt between the buildings. Into this circle stepped a cowboy, dressed like a movie cowboy, with an enormous hat, a pair of silver guns at his side, and a rope that he swung over his head. He played with the rope for a few minutes, and then practiced taking his guns out of his gun belt as quickly as he could. He was fast. He was also, obviously, a little crazy. When he'd finished his game, whatever it was, he went back into the house. The light went out as he went in. There was another, smaller light on in one of the buildings far from the big house. I walked over, moving as quietly as possible. I didn't want to be in the cowboy's movie tonight, because his guns just might have been loaded. I reached a window of the hut. It was now dark enough to look in without being seen. There was one man on a bed and another on a chair. They were talking. The man on the bed was angry, but he was so weak that his shout was no louder than a whisper. The other man was speaking calmly and patiently. The man on the bed said,
"I already paid you, and I paid you well. You got $600, and that was too much."
The man in the chair didn't disagree. He only said, "You called me, remember?"
I came to you in your hour of need. I told you it would be expensive. You insisted. I want another $5,000, Wade.
I was drunk, Wade said. I would have promised you anything.
You'll write me a check, my friend. Now, at once. Then you'll get dressed, and Earl will take you home. Wade laughed.
A check? Sure, I'll give you a check.
The doctor smiled. You think you can call the bank later and tell them not to accept it, but you won't. Earl will drive you home.
No thanks. That boy's insane. Crazier every time I see him.
Veringer shook his head. Earl isn't normal, I know, but I have ways of handling him.
That's what you think, a new voice said, and Earl came through the door in his pretty cowboy suit.
Keep that monkey away from me,
Wade shouted, and this time it was not a whisper. Earl didn't like the description. He started for Wade. Veringer jumped between them and was pushed roughly aside by the cowboy. I ran for the door and came into the room with my gun out. Earl spun around, forgetting Wade. The doctor was picking himself up off the floor. The cowboy came right at me. He didn't touch his guns, and he didn't seem to see mine. I fired through the open window over the bed. Earl stopped, looked at the hole in the window screen, and looked back at me, smiling.
That's a real gun, isn't it? Oh, boy!
Take the gun belt off. Slowly. Earl kept his smile.
Okay, only these aren't real guns, you know.
He took the belt off and put it down. Wade grabbed a gun.
He's right. They're toys.
Earl gave Wade a dirty look, but then he noticed the doctor, who was leaning against the wall, rubbing his head.
Sorry,
Earl said in a small voice. The doctor patted Earl gently on the shoulder and smiled. I pulled Wade out of there while I had the chance. Veringer watched us leave and said nothing until we were almost too far to hear him, and then he called out, "You promised me, Wade, 5,000. I put Wade in my car, and we started for home. His home first. He wanted to talk. I couldn't stop him.
You were great back there. Who are you?
I told him. I explained that his wife had hired me.
Well, whatever she's paying you, it isn't enough.
She isn't paying me, Mr. Wade, I told him. You are. I'd like the money from you. Seems better that way. Wade agreed. Then his thoughts turned to the doctor.
You think I should pay him the 5,000? He took good care of me. He's not a bad guy. Tries to keep Earl from killing himself, from killing everybody else. Don't know why he bothers. He let his business go to hell because of that crazy boy. I don't understand that. And I'm the big writer, supposed to understand people. Should I give him the money?
I told him I didn't have an opinion either way.
You don't like me, do you, Marlowe? Wait a minute. Marlowe. I know you. You were mixed up with Lennox, weren't you?
I said I had been. Wade nodded. He knew them, he said. Terry and Sylvia. He knew her better than he knew him, he said. He asked me questions I didn't want to answer. He was just a job, and that's what I told him. When we reached his house, he went straight in. I was going to drive off, but she came out to thank me.
You found him. I knew you would. Come in and have a drink, she offered.
Some other time. I lit a cigarette, and she smoked a little of it. You knew Sylvia Lennox, I said. Why didn't you tell me? She looked surprised.
The woman that was murdered? I didn't know her personally. I knew the name, that's all. I should go in, Mr. Marlowe, and see if my husband needs anything.
I need something, too, I said, and I pulled her to me and kissed her. She didn't help me, and she didn't fight me. She just let me do the whole job myself.
You shouldn't have,
she said when I released her.
But still, thanks for the other work you've done.
And she walked away and went into her nice house without stopping at the door to wave. I waved, though. I waved at the closed door, and then I went home, too.